Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shop Talk, aka the ToddCast. This week, I'm sitting down with Sarah Sedwick at a workshop that her and I are teaching together at Townsend Atelier. Sarah and I teach together all the time, and she's awesome, so figured I would record a conversation. So here it is. All right, we're rolling, so
Excellent.
where do you want to start?
Where do you usually start?
I usually start with the most embarrassing thing I know about the person. No, I'm kidding. No. I don't know. Where do you think we should start? You want to start with... We could start with our love for still life? Or
Why still life?
Or the fact that we're teaching a workshop together?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Let's start with that?
Yeah.
All right. How do we come together to do this?
So you and I are currently halfway through teaching our third workshop together, which is totally awesome. It's been 3 years since the last time we got the band together, so it's super good to see you and be painting with you again.
Mm-hmm.
How did we first start doing this? So you and I met after you wrote The Art of Still Life, and I heard you get interviewed on Danny Grant's podcast.
Danny.
And it was a great interview. And I remember I was like taking a shower and listening to the podcast. And I thought, ooh, I got to get this book. So I got the book, read the book. And I remember you saying two things that I took objection to.
Uh-oh.
The first one was that walnut oil was bad.
Oh, did I say that on the podcast or in the book?
You said it in the book.
Oh, okay.
That walnut oil was not ideal. That linseed oil was the best. And I was like, and then you said that white was just a very, very, very high key yellow, which I'm not arguing or saying that that's not right. I had just never heard that before.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. So I reached out to you on Facebook, so we were Facebook friends, and I said, I want to read this book with my mentee group. Could I ask you a couple of questions before I do this book? We do a book club a couple times a year. And we were reading your book. We were going to read your book because I loved it. And you were like, well, why don't I just come and talk to your mentee group on Zoom? And
Yeah.
I said, well, great. That's fantastic. So that's how you and I met.
Oh, man, did you totally just be like, what's the deal with walnut oil?
I did.
Did I defend myself?
No, you pretty much rolled over and agreed with me right away.
Yeah, and I think you and I have had many conversations since that it's really against safflower oil rather than walnut, but I think I took down all oils. So
Except linseed.
Yeah, except for linseed. But the truth is, and you know it, linseed is the strongest paint film, the most yellowing, and the fastest drying. Walnut is right behind it, and it's totally fine. There's plenty of historical examples of artists using walnut oil, and it's held up. And even poppy.
Least yellowing. You said linseed oil is the most yellowing.
Yeah. Well, the least yellowing is poppy.
Oh.
Looks like water. Yeah, and safflower is the reason why artists move towards safflower, because they put it in mostly titanium white. So that if you're going to paint titanium white out of a tube, almost all whites are going to yellow, which is also, I think, a function of the second question that you had asked. You had said, why is it a high key yellow?
Yeah.
I think what it is it's almost pure white. It's interesting because these conversations are very multifaceted. There's titanium white when it's mixed with something. Most people think it's blue because it shifts things towards violet or bluish. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean it is. That's just what's happening when you mix it. And then the other thing is that under a spectrophotometer, if you were to measure, I think, titanium white with nothing in it, it would be white. If you measure titanium white with linseed oil, it's yellow, which goes right to the first thing, is that linseed oil is yellow. So when it's measured, of course it's going to come up as yellow. Mm. It's total dorking. Sorry.
It makes sense, though. No, it completely answers the question. But when I read that, I remember going,
I used walnut oil.
I love both of your books.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I do like walnut oil. It's got a silky texture. And you use M. Graham paints, which I've used, and I think they're fantastic. So do you want to talk about that?
About using M. Graham?
Yeah.
Yeah, M. Graham is my paint sponsor, and I've been with them for over a decade. They're in Oregon, based company, just like gambling. And I really, really love their paint. I think it's got, for the price, the best quality on the market, and the consistency for me just can't be beaten, because oil paint runs the gamut from mayonnaise to like toothpaste. And I like mayonnaise. I like it to be nice and soft.
Yeah. Well, Ralph Mayer in, the Artist's Handbook said, I mean, it's weird to say that it should be one consistency because the rheology of paint can be all over the place, but he says that it should be buttery. But I wouldn't always want all my paints buttery. I like to shift them. The Impressionists took paint and they put it on cardboard to make it more, less oily, so it would drag. You can see the marks. So, yeah. So you can tinker with it anyway. I think it's, as long as you're using a good brand. I don't want to name bad brands, but... No,
we won't name bad brands. I think there are brands that work well for certain artists, not for other artists. It's all about your temperament, what kind of brushes you like to use. So artists who like to use hog bristle brushes probably really like stiffer, more toothpastey paint. I like to use synthetic brushes. Not super soft. I like a little spring, but I like synthetic brushes. I like the market makes, and so I like a little bit of softer paint.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's shift focuses, because you wrote a book too.
Mm-hmm.
We could dork out on art supplies. I could do that.
Dork out on art supplies all night.
Yeah, I don't think you want me to talk about that. So I wrote The Artist Still Life. We started teaching together. I think the last time we got together, you started writing the book, right? In Salt Lake?
Yeah, that sounds right. My book came out in November 2022, right after the Oil Painter's Color Handbook came out. Think.
Yeah, we were about the same time.
We were writing your second book, my first book at the same time. COVID baby books.
Yeah, for sure. And how did that come out? Like, your story is different from mine.
Right. So I was approached by a couple of different publishers, and I passed on their ideas. The first publisher that approached me wanted me to write a really accessible introductory book for people who've never oil painted before. And I thought, maybe I'm not like the perfect person to do this. Yes, I do love to teach beginners. In fact, I like to have painters of all levels in all my workshops. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that. But that book wasn't a good fit. And then another publisher came along, and I wasn't in a place to do it. And then it's like Goldilocks almost. When the third publisher came along, it was just right. And it was 2020. So I had nothing better to do. And I'm really proud of my book. I think my publisher did a fantastic job. My book's called Dynamic Still Life for Artists. And they made me look really good. The graphic design is amazing. I think the quality is fantastic. And I couldn't be more proud of it.
And you're thinking about another one?
Absolutely. I would love to write another one.
Can you talk about it?
Well, I don't
have to.
I don't have a deal yet, but I would love to write another book called Loose Realism, which is what I call my painting style. My goal is always to loosen up and paint more freshly, energetically, and I think that's why a lot of people choose to study with me, is because they also are overworkers, which I'm a recovered overworker, and they want some help to loosen up and break out of that mold. So over time, people started to ask me what my style was called, and I had no name for it. And I got tired of saying, so I just made it up, Loose Realism. And that's what I want my second book to be called.
How different would it be from the first?
Well, it would be a lot more about how to loosen up and stop sooner. So it would be exercises about that, mainly derived from my workshop oil painting boot camp, where we paint with 3 colors and white, and we do all kinds of exercises like painting with a way bigger brush than you want to, like setting a timer and forcing yourself to stop painting after 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, like limiting the amount of brush strokes you're allowed in a painting of one single object. Mm-hmm. These are examples of exercises I do with students to shake up their tendency to overwork.
Yeah, how come you wouldn't call it boot camp? Like
The book?
Paint boot camp, yeah.
Boot camp, the title of the workshop, Oil Painting Boot Camp, came from a really evil exercise class that I once took called Boot Camp. It was really, really evil. But over time, I started to feel like it had too many military connotations, and it has nothing at all to do with that. We don't drop and give me 20. We mix paint and then give me 20-minute painting. So I've been sort of moving away from teaching oil painting boot camp under that name.
You should do it. First time I heard you say you were going to do Twisted 20s, I was like, what kind of calisthenics is that? Like, are we going to be swinging?
Hold a medicine ball in one hand, you brush in the other hand, and you go. No, Twisted 20s is an exercise where you mix a whole bunch of paint for as long as you want, and then you paint for 20 minutes, and then you twist the still life before going at it again. We did it 2 days ago on day one of this workshop, and it was a blast. Work was beautiful. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah. I think it's, there are many facets to the way that I like to work, and one of them is to let go. I've been teaching like some online classes just called skill building, which is, there's the slow painting movement, and I'm part of it. I mean, I paint pretty slow. But then there's just cranking out little studies. And if you want to become a well-rounded artist, to each their own. But, like, you can't go outside and do landscape painting if you're slow. I mean, when Monet, you could figure out ways to get around working. So, like, Monet, I think, painted the same scene for 30 minutes a day until the light changed. And he just did it over like 30 sessions. But if you're trying to capture a sunset and you're not going to get the sunset every single day, get faster. And, what's fascinating to me was I would begin to look into artists like Piet Mondrian, and he was a realist.
He was an amazing still life painter before he got hit on the head or struck by lightning or whatever happened.
Whatever the
poor
blocks. Yeah. But there's a lot of artists like that too that had almost like a nom de plume, that like they had a secondary world. They're known for one thing, like Gustav Klimt even. Klimt, everyone knows a Klimt, but if you look at early Klimt, you see just how tight and realist he was. And my mind hopping into them was like, why did they evolve? Why did they want to evolve? And sometimes I think the evolution is becoming themselves.
Right. I mean, we all want to evolve, don't we?
Mm.
When I follow an artist and I follow them for 10 years and their work doesn't change, I stop following them. I seem to lose interest because watching the evolution of an artist is part of the fun for me of, being involved in looking at art online.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. And I hope that that's happening with my work. I hope that the people, that's my real deep fundamental wish for myself. It's not to be famous or make $1 million or even write another book. It's that the people who are following me are not yawning.
Yeah.
That they're like engaged and something is interesting next year that wasn't there this year.
Yeah. Like Alan Watts said, you have no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And if your tastes and things that you're interested in keep changing, then why would I get it asked all the time from my gallery, one of them, why I don't want to paint some of that old stuff, or even students that love my earlier work. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if I could do it anymore. And Bob Dylan actually said that about his early writing. He's like, the guy who wrote those, and he says the names of the lyrics. He's like, I don't know who that guy is. I couldn't do it now.
So what's an example of some of your early work that people want you to redux?
It's just the tighter Water Street work, or out of Water Street when I was trying to figure out who I was or how to paint. And I don't even know if that really was me, but it was interesting. And I look back at it and I'm like, that was an interesting version of me, but I don't think I would want to do it anymore. I don't think I can do it anymore. I think I could, but I don't particularly have an interest. I keep slowly moving towards another goal. And that's just the more layering of talking to people and seeing work that inspires me, or broadening my perspective, looking at abstract expressionism or something and bringing out in some facet that's different, Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
I see you doing that.
Yeah. I mean, we've taught together over 4 years now? Three.
Mm-hmm.
This is the third time.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine me I even look at my old demo here and I'm like, oh God, take it off. I'm not that anymore. But it's fine. And somebody will find some value in it. But
Absolutely.
feel the same way?
About my old work? Yeah, some of it I can mine for the new stuff. Some of it is actually really resonant with me today, but it's the stuff that didn't really feel like me back then.
Yeah.
It was like the wacky stuff back then I look at now and I'm like, yeah, that looseness, that wonkiness, where I may have been just being sort of unsuccessful at the time in my mind, looks very appealing to me today. So I look back at my old work all the time to get ideas for new paintings or subjects I want to revisit.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like somehow I left a note to myself. And sometimes it's even that thing that felt awkward that I continue to look back at that resonates. Sometimes it's conscious, but then sometimes it's unconscious. And then you're just like, I don't know why I have a desire to do this thing, but I do. And then you realize you saw somebody else's work or your own work, and we're continually putting things in a blender and pushing them back out. But yeah, I definitely feel that. And that's why when I look at my older work, I'm like, I don't know. Is that interesting?
Mm-hmm. I really, I've gotten 1 or 2 commissions where people have just asked me to recreate a painting that I did, 8 years ago or something. And it depends on the painting. Sometimes I'll say yes and sometimes I'll say no, but I almost always regret it when I say yes. It's not fun copying your own old work.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
When people ask me, I actually did that a couple times, especially with the cocktails.
Yeah.
I'm the Thomas Kincaid of cocktail painting. But
you're not that much of an asshole.
But like Bloody Marys, there's like a list of them that I've done like 8 times, and I'm like, I don't know how many different versions of this painting I can do to keep it interesting, or it's not just for money. And I'm like, I'd prefer not to get the money and just follow some other interest. So, but then some things you paint, you just know, like you did the steak painting. It's like, that'd be a hard sell. Would you do that again? You should do an update.
Yeah. Talking about mining your old work for new inspiration. He's talking about a painting that I did in art school 25 years ago, and it's really goofy. It's got like a steak and some cigarettes and some pills and a beer, and it's gross. But yeah, no, that one I would definitely consider recreating, but I'd do it.
You should do it
2025 style. Yeah, I should do it. I absolutely should.
There's some sweet paintings
of meat,
that are just like, I don't think there's even a market for it, but I would still do it. Like the fish paintings, we were talking about those yesterday.
I think there's a big market for fish paintings.
Think so?
Yes, but here's the thing.
The fish market?
Right. I never paint to the market, and I don't think you do either, except maybe with that's why you call yourself Thomas Kincaid, because he was such a sellout with the cocktail paintings. I'm not calling you a sellout.
No, it's okay.
I get where the joke comes from. But you can't paint at the market, because if you try, it doesn't work. Like, it just will not sell.
Yeah.
Whenever I have the thought in my little monkey brain, if I paint X, it will sell, I know that's a huge red flag. Like, alarm bells start going off. In the past, when I've had that thought, it's always been a disaster. So I'll give you a really good example. I love to paint Christmas ornaments. You ever painted a Christmas ornament?
I just did 2 Christmas cocktails.
You've painted a Christmas ornament.
Oh, yeah.
It's very similar to like the red balls that you'll paint for your color theory online.
Yeah.
And you did beautiful Christmas ornaments. And I love painting Christmas ornaments when I'm in the mood. And I'm generally in the mood once or twice a year. And if I'm not, I don't do it. But they always sell. And galleries always want them. And, I think they resonate with the viewer because I love doing it. I do it when I want to, and I love to do it. But so when I first started painting Christmas ornaments, I thought, well, this sells. So why don't I make seasonal paintings for every holiday? And it was like it was just a disaster. Valentine's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving. I'm not kidding. I tried them all and they were embarrassing. So, coming up with money-making schemes around the paintings that you make for your art, it just doesn't work.
I think that the Venn diagram is that there's interest and there's a market, then it's nice. But it's kind of, I think of it secondary. Like I didn't think of cocktail paintings and I was like, oh, there's a huge market for it. I just came out of my training and I didn't want to do boring still life paintings, which I think are just fruit, like pears or apples, which no offense to anybody who does that. Cezanne even said, you can say everything you want with apples or something. But to me, I was like, I think you can add a narrative quality to it. And then you could take the name of the martini or cocktail and then find props around it. So it becomes a little bit more narrative. But yeah, now it's just become, I don't want to be known for it. And I don't even know how I feel about that because I already made a book on it too. Yeah. So at the same time, I'm like, it's a blessing and a curse. I think what it is I just don't want to do it all the time. I want to be, whenever I'm inspired, I want to like go down that road. Sometimes it's just being in somebody else's house and you see a prop and, wherever it is, not to do versions of other people's paintings, but like things that inspire you to paint them. I want to play with them.
And we're sitting right here next to a still life that you concocted for your demo for the workshop.
Well, the funny thing about the flowers too is that I go to the grocery store and the first thing they do is push you into the flower shop. It's right there. Yeah. And I just bought them. And I was like, I don't know. I haven't painted flowers. I painted a flower on the cover of the Oil Painter's Color Handbook. Then I thought, how well do I know them? Is it a one-off? Can I do it all the time? And I used to garden all the time. So there was a kind of an overlap between another opening of trying things out and maybe also, I don't know, maybe they could sell, or particularly
people love flower paintings. Right. I don't think either of us is inspired by what will sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see either of us as
sales are nice, of course.
Yeah, sales are exciting. It's the life cycle of a painting. You want to see that life cycle get completed. And, best case scenario, you're actually at the opening and you get to meet the buyer. That's like the best.
Yeah, there's also there's a beauty and a sadness too, because sometimes you don't know. Like at the beginning, I didn't want to sell any of my work. And now I'll usually sell almost anything. There's a couple that are tied to like my daughter that I just wouldn't sell. But then there's like a happiness and a sadness where I'm like, this is the last time I'm going to see this painting. Like, and I created you. And now you're going out in the world.
God, I've only got literally one painting that I wish I hadn't sold.
Yeah.
And I'll send it to you so you can pop it in the video if anybody's interested in seeing which one it is. But yeah, I have always had no trouble at all parting with my creations. I feel really blessed in a couple of ways. I've never had a hang up about putting my work out there, sort of good or bad. Just put it out there. Someone's going to like it. And I have never had a problem with selling. There's not really been anything that I've wanted to keep back for myself.
Mm. For me, it was just a studio painting because we sold our house and it was just tied to
a painting of your studio.
Yeah, and that's carrying nice. Scarlet around and everything, and
that's really nice.
Yeah, but yeah, I actually got offered to buy them. It was an interior of my old studio, and I got offered to buy it like 3 times, and I was like, no, and it won a gold medal and something. So I was like, I think I'm going to hold on to this one. This is a little painting, but it also reminds me because it's a note to myself to do more of them. Mm-hmm. From the heart. I mean, I try to do everything from the heart, but like interiors and get out of the still life world. I like it, but I never set out to be a still life painter, but I love it. But at the same time, I just want to do whatever the heck I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's truly what I think.
I love interiors too. I don't do enough of them, but I really do love them. I think interiors are the still lifes. How should I put this? So you got plein air landscape, and then you've got interiors, and interiors like plein air for still life painters.
Yeah, like
as long as I'm not in my studio and I'm using, if there's window light involved, that's plein air enough for me.
You paint under incandescent light, though, right?
Yeah.
And your preference is warm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warm to light the room, warm to light the still life. But I'm going more like neutral to light the room now. My new studio has gray walls, so I don't have to compensate for the wall color with the lighting. So yeah, neutral room light, warm light on my subject.
So I'm sure you hear this too, and I'm sure you get asked, do you paint under natural light? Do you have skylight?
No.
Yeah, and I don't either. And I always say, I guess I just didn't get the memo, or I couldn't afford to. What's your take on it?
On what? On natural light?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually a vampire. I'm not into it. I just built a studio over the past year and a half attached to my house, and it's on the south side of the house. There's literally no north access at all in the studio. It's stuck on the south side of the house. So that was out of the question. And we didn't put skylights in because I would have just wanted to cover them up with shades anyway, and that would have been expensive. I've got room darkening cellular blinds on every single window, and I paint in the cave.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I always say I didn't want to spend like 10 or 20 grand just to blow a hole in my roof to be able to get north light to then cover it and then
and you paint
tell
in
everyone.
Your attic?
Yeah, it's freaking hot up there.
Oh man.
Yeah, but it's cool. Paints dry fast, and I actually like being at home, just so I can hear what's going on in the house.
Me too. I had a studio outside of my house for the first time in my entire life while this studio was getting constructed, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I had the experience because I've always been curious what it was like to have a studio outside your home. But I like to just be able to have the coffee and the PJs and walk into the studio and in the slippers and not have to get in the car and go anywhere.
Yeah, same here.
Low barrier to entry. Anything that could cause me resistance will. So I need to just slide right into that painting practice. That's another thing that these warm-up exercises and these loosening up exercises are really good for is helping you get over resistance, if you're having trouble starting to paint, which I think a lot of us struggle with. Mm-hmm. These exercises can be a great way to get started. You can do anything for 20 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So what time of day do you usually paint? Do you have a favorite time?
Well, I'm not a night painter, and I'm definitely a morning person. So as long as it's not after dinner, I'll paint anytime.
How long do you paint for?
Well, anywhere from 2 to about 5 hours. Yeah. 2 hours is probably the minimum.
Yeah.
I'll go in the studio and mess around, work on setting up still lifes. If I only have an hour in between things and I want to get in there and do some work, it's like you were saying earlier, go in and tone a canvas, he was telling the class. And absolutely, you can work on getting your surfaces ready. I don't stretch my own canvases or gesso my own surfaces too often, but I will go in and work on still life setup, putting objects together, maybe testing out some different color combinations. So I'll get some different colors of paper and put them together with some different objects and just let them sit. So I end up with these piles around my studio and I'm testing out these color and texture combinations. So that's, when I don't have a big chunk of time to go into the studio, that's what I'll do. I'll go in and work on things like that.
Totally. Yeah. I get asked all the time, which I'm sure you get asked too, how many paintings do you have going on at once? And I'm like, a lot.
Really?
I always have some idea in my head or a sketch or inspiration on the wall, but I have 5 stations that are just, some are for small ones, a couple of them are ones that I'm just sitting with for like even a month.
5 stations.
Yeah.
Huh. So I have 2 stations. A tabletop height that can have boxes stacked up on it for a higher vantage point, and the low vantage point station.
Yeah.
Which I can move around anywhere. Anyway, I feel like I cut you off.
No. I think there's not like one way to do it. And yeah, for me, I'd like to work out an idea and spend time with it. But then also, I don't want to use it as a crutch. So I want to like paint it. So if I want to just paint something, I'll paint something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's sometimes stuff that's like super planned and you've really thought it out. And then there's other things that I'm just going to throw something together and I hope I can make that work too. And if you can do all of those different facets and make it work all the time, which it doesn't, then it's like you're not at the mercy of, when do you want to paint? You just paint whenever.
Yeah, you've always got something ready to go, or you have the ability to let go of perfectionism enough and say, I'm just going to paint anything because I want to paint. I want to play my scales today. I don't want to practice actual musical piece. I only work on one painting at a time.
Yeah.
Ever.
I generally do the same.
My problem is that if I start another painting before I finish the first one, I will not go back and finish the first one. Yeah. I hate working back into dry paintings. Yeah. So when I've done I've been lucky enough to do a couple artist residencies in my lifetime, and only 2, but they were amazing. And when you've got literally nothing to do but paint for a month, then you're painting 8 or 10 hours a day, then I'll work on more than one painting at once because I can have them wet and go back and forth and work on them and finish them both while they're still wet. But if the first one dries while I'm working on the second one, the first one's not getting finished.
Yeah. Yeah. So you prefer more of a wet into wet?
Yes, I'm definitely an alla prima girl.
Yeah. But you also do it over multiple sessions, so it's...
Yeah, sometimes. When I work larger, I work over multiple sessions.
Yeah.
But usually, I don't work huge. The biggest... If I'm working over like 20 inches on a side, that's huge for me.
Yeah.
I'm just not a grand scale painter yet, although that is one of my life goals, is to size up my comfort zone. But to work on a painting that's like 20 inches or more on a side, I wouldn't work on it for more than 2 or maybe 3 consecutive days.
Yeah.
But like 2 days, 2 painting sessions, I could bang that out.
Yeah. And what's your average size?
My average size is probably 10 by 10.
Yeah. It's a good scale.
I paint 10 by 10 all the time. 10 by 10, 9 by 12, very common. And I like the Fibonacci ratio canvases also. So that's like 8 by 13, 7 by 11, 10 by 16, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about painting big, which I've done a bunch, are just the price tag, because you spend way more time on them. And then do you do yours by like the inch, like square inch?
Roughly.
Yeah, because it falls apart when you get too big.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think of it all as like I do a lot more small work or smallish, even though that's relative to whoever the heck you talk about is what they call small. Some people think 11 by 14 or 1824 is small.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's the material cost to do big stuff. So
true. But you and I are lucky to have generous paint sponsors, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't have one really for linen. I have one for Trucal and then for paint. But yeah. So what's your goal for the big one? I'm curious now.
For working larger?
Yeah, what is it? Do you have a size?
No, I don't have a particular size picked out. The truth is, I don't want to wrangle 4-foot canvases around the world. I don't want to be shipping them. I don't want to be moving them around my house or my studio. And I certainly don't want to be stretching them myself. And I don't think I want to be paying for them. So I'd be really happy if I could just be comfortable waking up and busting out an 18 by 24 painting on a weekend.
You could do it.
I absolutely can. I just don't.
Yeah. You will.
I'm like, it's Saturday. I'm going to just paint a 10 by 10 and then I'm going to paint a different painting tomorrow. That's my thing. I'm all about like the next one. I came into my current art practice through daily painting, which was, the entire idea of daily painting is you paint something one day and now that's over and we do something else tomorrow. No commitment, no risk, no barrier to entry, just go.
Move on.
And I love that.
So let's talk about your story because you gave it to the students and I love it. You basically said that you graduated MICA and then you didn't do anything for like 4 or 6 years?
Like 6 or 7.
6 or 7.
Really depressing.
Yeah.
I did. I went to MICA, Maryland's Institute College of Art, and I was an illustration major, like you were an illustration major when you first started going to school. And I graduated art school with a lot of ideas that weren't real helpful in terms of me running out and starting an art career in galleries. Because back then, 25 years ago, the traditional gallery system was it. And I was really freaked out by that. I didn't really know how to get started, how to approach a gallery. I didn't have a body of work to approach a gallery with anyway. And I kept doing things that would really get in my own way. So I would, speaking of big canvases, I would stretch a big canvas, hand stretch. I'd put 4 coats of gesso on it. I would sand it. You're laughing. And it would be so nice. And then I'd be afraid to paint on it. I'd get stage fright. And that was just one of several things that I did to get in my own way. And so after art school, I would periodically try to paint. I wanted to paint. I missed painting. I was really sad that I wasn't painting. And, that's a story that I hear from a lot of my students nowadays. When I'm teaching, I'm out there teaching workshops, I'm hearing from my students, oh, well, I was an art major in college, but then I was pushed into a lucrative career. Or I really wanted to paint, but my sister was the artist. Or I went to art school, but then I had a family and I stopped for 25 years. I understand what it feels like to spend years wanting to paint, trying to get an art practice going and not being able to do it. And I completely can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And helping people overcome that through the workshops that I teach and the book that I wrote, hopefully, and the online classes that I teach, the online videos that I have for sale. Any help that I can give to a person in that position, that is my mission in life.
Yeah, I love that too. I love the daily painter idea because I think you nailed it too in saying that a lot of us get in our own head and there's a reason not to. And then you realize there's a lot of time wasted. These days, I'm just it's just paint. And if it sucks, get a good fire pit and throw it in there. Or get a fireplace.
I know the art purging party, the yearly art purging party is so free. Do you do that?
Yeah, I don't even know what I do with my stuff. I don't know.
Well, you brought a bunch of sort of studio seconds with you here to the workshop.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's dead birds and all weird stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. It's just curiosity of finding a dead bird and painting it. But yeah, I think in all that too, there's the catering of what we show and of what I show at galleries and stuff like that. But then there's just curiosity of taking in, that's my daily painting kind of stuff over there of just taking it for a test spin. And if I'm going to come up with a killer idea, why don't I just play with it first and then let the study sit there and then think about it. And maybe it'll turn itself into a good painting. Maybe it's on its way to one. Maybe I'll keep finishing it, but maybe it's I needed to have that connection to it and then have it sit in my psyche and then develop something out of it. So yeah, I love the idea.
Totally. The operative word is play that you used.
I know.
You're letting yourself play.
Yeah.
We're so lucky.
I think sometimes it's articulation and perfection gets in the way of creating. But I don't think that's the top of the totem pole for me is expression and play. But having the language to do it and having understood it. I mean, we're coming in here and you and I graduated the same year. So we've had the same time of painting after. And I'm just giving you a glimpse. I was in your position. I get it. I didn't do stuff for years, but also just let go at the same time. Like, be serious, play, do all those things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you're too serious, you just take it too serious. I don't know. I tell jokes all the time, It's like half the time when we're teaching the workshops, I feel like it's stand-up comedy. But it's fun, and it makes it interesting. And I think painting should be the same way.
Well, my father always says that about being a good teacher is half of being a good teacher is being an entertainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're definitely good at that.
Oh, thanks. You are too.
Thank you.
I definitely think that we're performing, especially when you're doing demonstrations in front of people. And Michael Aviano used to call it the performance,
Teaching.
Yeah.
Or painting.
Painting in front of someone.
Painting in front of someone.
Yeah.
That's interesting that he would think of it. Because, I think of like musicians, they go off in a room somewhere by themselves and they practice, and we do that too. But then they go out and they just get one shot, this performance is this ephemeral thing. And we have this painting that we can work on and perfect for as long as we want. We can even take it back and work on it more after we show it if we want to, It's like never over. Never has to be over. It's not ephemeral. It's forever.
Do you ever have any paintings that you're embarrassed that you did? Yeah,
same here.
Same here.
Are you kidding me? All the weird angsty self-portraits of my teen years, but are you talking about my current work? Do I have paintings that I'm embarrassed about? I've had some epic fails. I have a deep belief, and I have to believe this or I'd never be able to teach another workshop, that in order to be a good demo, a painting doesn't have to be a good painting. It can be a really effective demo, get the point across, get the message into the student's head in a way that they totally understand. That's a successful demo. It doesn't necessarily have to be the world's greatest painting. And that's freedom to me. That's the freedom to be able to paint in front of other people without fear. And enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I do.
Yeah, I agree. I demo a lot at Lyme, and it's helped me. I think because there's a time limit, and then I've been able to just stop in the middle and kind of outside perspective look at my own work the way I would look at somebody else's and be like, oh, that's interesting. I'm glad you stopped. It's a note to yourself now that maybe there's room to grow, or maybe you don't always have to finish it so much. I think linear sequential type A people make sense why they do hyper photorealism, because it's done when you've done all the things that you need to do. But when you have to cater it and figure out when you are done is hard. If you're expressing the thing, when do you stop? Because you're not telling the same story. It's not like you're reading a book. You're tell me the synopsis of the story then. And that's individual. What's essential
and what can be let go.
Yeah.
I never have had that thought about photorealism before, that it must be easier for them because they know when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fascinating thought.
Yeah, just think about it. If it looks like the photo, then you're done, right? And if but the things that you're teaching are paint with a big brush, and it's you can't do photorealism with a big brush. So I think it leans on the painterly side of it, which is where I'm at too. And there's even parts of it that I wish I was even looser than I already am, which I don't even think I'm loose. But then I'm it's just a goal, and I'll slowly get there over time.
You absolutely will.
Yeah.
I'll get looser too, and we'll both write more books, and life will be good.
And then some of our students will say, why don't you go back to that early stage when your work was better?
Or maybe we won't be teaching anymore.
Yeah. No one will sign up anymore. So you're doing other things too. You were doing landscape for a while. You're doing the portrait. You do the Zorn talent.
So 10 years ago, I was probably 60-40 still life portrait figure. I was probably a full 40% portrait and figure in my painting practice. And I was selling those paintings online. through Etsy, through eBay, through Instagram. And people would ask me, what do you do with all these portraits that you're painting? You really selling those? And I was like, well, if you had the chance to buy a portrait by Van Gogh, not that I'm comparing myself to Van Gogh or anything, but wouldn't you buy it? Like, a good painting is a good painting, even if you don't know who the subject is. So I was successful at that, but galleries didn't want that stuff.
Yeah.
And as I started to get into more galleries, and as I started to do more workshop teaching, I didn't have time to do as much work from the model anymore, which was really sad. I still do teach portrait. I teach portrait with the Zorn palette, which I'm really into. I'm very into the 3-color and white thing. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if it's Zorn or random colors or what. But yeah, I also teach portrait, and I have painted some landscape. I don't really prefer to paint landscape now. I'll do a still life. I'd rather paint still life outside than
that should be our workshop. Landscape. Let's do a workshop.
I've done it.
Let's do one together.
That would be great.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'd love that.
Yeah, because there's so much more color outside and shadows and stuff like that than inside, even though you put a lot of color in your shadows and you do chromatic aberrations and fun things, which always remind me to put them in mine.
Yeah, I call it pushing your color seeing or taking risks with color. Yeah. And I think you use those words too, taking risks with color. Committing crimes with color is what you say.
Your values commit crimes with color. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do we just have to paint things the way that they look, which is definitely a nice skill set to have. And I'm not trying to be pejorative by saying it, but I don't know. And then there's colorists. There's all these different facets, I feel like. Like somebody had asked somebody, like, do you listen to any new music? And the person, I think it was the Beastie Boys, one of the guys from the Beastie Boys, like, no, there's too much old good stuff I just can't get through. And like, I don't have time for the new stuff. And I feel like that's just too many good painters out there to be inspired by, to then shift my work and then study from them, the colors.
I could never go past like 1925 and be perfectly happy with my art looking.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a colorist or a tonalist?
I have no idea what the heck I am. I don't think of the names. I don't know if I care. I wish I could be a colorist. I wish I could be like an impressionist. But tonalist, I don't know. Tonalist, I always think of like, not Turner. God, what's the guy's name that's in the book? I don't know. The landscape painters that are like nocturnes, like Whistler, or Atkinson Grimshaw is another one. They're just beautiful, and they're almost like tonal, monochromatic-y paintings in one color that harmonizes it. I forget the guy's name. You know him.
See, I consider myself a tonalist because of Charles Hawthorne. Charles Hawthorne is one of my total heroes, and I read his book at least once a year, and he's a colorist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a colorist. He's all about color spot, color spot, color spot. You put the color spot next to the other color spot, and when you stand back, you're going to have form. I don't think so. I don't agree. So when I read Hawthorne that once a year, like religiously, I just replace the word color with value in almost every instance, and it works for me like a charm. And that's how I know that I'm a tonalist.
They used to, I see. So you're just saying, are you hammering on more value or color?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. It's so hard to say, because I think of like tonalist movement as, God, I wish I could remember the guy's name, of more of like one feeling with the work. But color and value are tied to one another, so I don't even know if you could really separate them.
Absolutely. And I may be defining the camps incorrectly, but maybe not. I don't know.
Colors, I think of like Hopsip Pushman as a good one, because Pushman, you know Hopsip Pushman?
Uh-huh.
Pushman did a lot of beautiful portrait work, and his portrait work has so much color in it. And to me, I'm like, that's what I want. I want to sneak color in, and you go, there's no green in that person's face. but like you put it in and it's convincing, or it's the art of it. You know,
that's why we like looking at the people that take color risks and
make us think different.
Yeah, but the values line up, and that's why it works.
Exactly. That's the committing the crimes of color. So Max Ginsburg's dad, Abraham, studied with Hawthorne. That's why when you look at his dad's work, I'm like, it's super colorful. I have one of his portraits hanging in my living room, and it's like a green out of the tube shadow. And it's beautiful and it's realist. And it makes me think different every single day when I look at that thing. And I'm like, I'm going to go take a risk.
Absolutely. That's amazing. You know, one of my mentees last week I was talking to, and she busted out this beautiful painting, and the cast shadow was green for no reason at all. And it was like amazing. We both sat there and just sort of scratched our heads and went, we don't know why the shadow is green, but we both really like this. And it was a beautiful little moment.
Yeah, it was green because that's probably what the person wanted the audience to see, or they were just playing and you caught them playing, and that's what it looked like in the end.
I think they just lost their train of thought in the middle of painting, and we're on autopilot, which is a good thing to do sometimes, is to paint on autopilot, don't you think?
Yeah.
You know, why do we practice so much if we can't just let go and enjoy our accrued knowledge once in a while?
Yeah, I think beyond the mimetic, beyond just making stuff look like stuff or the thing that you see and then go riffing off, it's quite fascinating to me. When people do that well and it's convincing, I'm much more interested, you know? I mean, it's almost like photography is interesting, and I love to look at it, and certain forms of it are more beautiful to me than others. And I say to me, I'm not making anyone's mind up, but Palladian tin type photography I think is amazing, or anything in that realm. But then I'm like, okay, that's just the way the world is. I think Whistler even said, if the ultimate goal was to make it look like a photograph, then the ultimate artist would be a photographer. And it's like, you could see that art took a turn almost like after he said it. They're like, oh, I guess we have to do something different. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I obviously preaching to the choir here because you feel the same way, but you said that you had some of your early work and it was more realistic and more labored.
Some of it, not all. You know, I would sort of veer from one extreme to the next. I was trying to find myself without actually trying to find myself. I wasn't angsting about it. I'm so blessed to have not been angsty about, oh, what's my style and what's my identity as an artist. You know, I didn't worry about it. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to think or worry about. If you are thinking about that, the good news is you have a style and you have an unique artistic fingerprint. The other news is the way that you find it is by painting a lot and then looking at what you did, preferably with an objective friend who can point out the themes, the stylistic themes that are running through all that work that you just produced. That's how you find your style, and that's how I found my style, and I wasn't too angsty about it. So I really tried all kinds of things, all kinds of vantage points. I wanted to emulate all kinds of different artists, and I did. If I saw somebody doing something and it looked like fun, I tried it. And that's why today I really love like my Patreon community, for example, where I put out a lot of still life photos that I take. I don't work from photos myself, but I take a lot of photos of the still lifes that I set up, and I share those on Patreon, and people paint from those, post them online, and it is wonderful for me to see, because like I was saying earlier, it just goes toward my whole mission of like helping people find their own artistic voice, access their own creativity. It's very meaningful for me. Anyway, I think I totally flew off topic of the question, but
I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, what are we even talking about anymore? Art?
No,
we're tired. We've been teaching for now 3 of the 4 days that we're going to teach together, and we have one more day tomorrow to bring it all home.
Wrap it all up.
Absolutely. Todd's going to wrap up this beautiful demo, and I'm going to paint some ribbon too, and we're going to give the students a lovely final critique. I love doing critiques. How do you feel about doing critiques?
I don't mind them. Depends on when you do them. Like when I taught at Mass Art, we used to have epic critiques. We were a 5-hour class, 3 hours were like critique. It's insane.
Yeah.
But we did them first, and then we painted second. And because if you do it in the reverse order in a college, and you paint first, nobody's going to be with you at the end. Ours are short. We keep them like 30 minutes, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And people like it. They like to hear of it, because you can usually see on the wall, there's like a histogram where you got to like look and see how the evolution, even in a short term, of what they're getting. And, they're able to see it. And it's wonderful to kind of see growth. I think that's one of the reasons why you teach it, right? Mm-hmm. You can see in a short amount of time, you can turn somebody around and give them the skill set.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people learn more from the critiques of other people's work than they do from the critique of their own work. Because, we've been going around and talking to them about their piece throughout the day, but they haven't heard what we've been saying to everybody else.
Yeah.
So during the critique, they get the opportunity to hear that. And it's a really important part of my teaching. Plus, I get to play with the laser pointer cat toy, and you just can't beat that.
All right, so maybe we should wrap up. Anything else you want to add to it? I mean, we're wrapping up the workshop.
Yeah, we're wrapping up another successful workshop. Todd and Sarah. Maybe in closing, we could say that if you would like Todd and Sarah to teach a workshop at your school, reach out and get in touch with us. We are available.
The traveling duo.
The dynamic duo.
Yeah, that's right, because you own Dynamic
Still Life for artists.
What do I call mine then? I'm not so dynamic.
The Artful Duo.
There we go. The Artful Duo.
We should get t-shirts.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll do more, and we had intent to do more of it, and it's a good I wouldn't even say contrast. I think balance of going fast and going slow and what that means. And I think everyone should go fast all the time and see what it's like, and then go slow, learn how to go slow, which takes a lot of patience, and then find out where you make your best work. And then between those two poles, get in the studio every day. Even if it's just doing a panel, as we were talking about, like studio habits and anything like that. Whatever it is you need to do, set yourself up for tomorrow. Scrape a palette down. You'll feel like you've accomplished something. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of the time, I feel like as a teacher, I'm like, let's just get you to the gym every day. Like, you can walk on the treadmill on level 1. And then once we get past that, then we can get into, exercises or what do you want to do? And we bump it up to treadmill 10, but...
Yeah, that's a really good metaphor. But I, in my workshops, do tend to throw people onto the treadmill at level 10 in day 1.
Yeah.
Just to sort of shock them out of their bad habits, maybe. But, when you and I teach together, our workshop is not called the Dynamic Duo. It is called Two Approaches to the Contemporary Still Life, because that's what we have. Like, we both are contemporary still life painters. We're both really interested in painting from life, alla prima, but we approach it in a slightly different way. I'm a little bit more quick and dirty, and you are a little bit more methodical. I think that's a fair characterization.
I take no offense to anything.
We've both got a method, a technique, not a technique, but a process is the word I'm hunting for, that can be passed along in a capsule. It's like not rocket science, but it's a definite process. And I think that we have that in common, and that's a huge thread that unites us as team teachers for a workshop.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm super impressed with the student work. It's great.
Yeah. It's always fun. And we've done it throughout the whole country now, I think. Mm-hmm. We should be doing one in the East. I'm surprised we haven't yet.
Aren't we in the East?
I don't know where we're at.
Where are we?
In the South. Chattanooga.
We're in Chattanooga, Tennessee right now at Townsend Atelier. We're in the South, yeah. But it's the East.
Southeast.
I live in Oregon. Everything's the East to me.
We got to do the Northeast. But we did Whitby, and that was like an airplane to a bus
to a boat.
Yeah, to a boat, to must have been a pedicab on the other side, and or a rickshaw.
Horrible trip for you,
Yeah.
and you want to go back.
I would do it. I would do anything. I don't do a lot of workshops. You do a lot of workshops, which, by the way, we should talk about that. But
I do a lot of workshops.
yeah, I do my daughter's young, so right now it's too hard for us to give up the time. But
And you have a lot of teaching opportunities close to you, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be teaching like 12 workshops a year if I had opportunities like you do in my own backyard, but I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like it right now. I'm into the travel for now, and just feels like this time in my life is indicated that I do this. But I'm not going to be teaching 12 or 13 workshops a year forever.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Anyway, you can find out information on all my upcoming workshops on my website, sarahsedwick.com, and a whole lot more information about mentorship. And you can check out my Instagram. I'm Sedwick Studio on Instagram if you want to go all the way back to the beginning and see some of my daily paintings from 15 years ago. I certainly have that option.
Cool. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, thanks for letting me shamelessly plug myself, Todd.
Yeah, we've been talking about this one for years. We were supposed to do it in Salt Lake, and I don't know, we probably just both got tired, but we plugged through and did it this time. So grateful to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.